This against the great Edmar Mednis. Edmar Mednis, if you don't know this name, you really should. Edmar John Mednis. He was actually born in Riga, Latvia, the hometown of Michael Tal. He lived from March 22nd, 1937 to February 13th, 2002. Mednis was trained as a chemical engineer, but then worked as a stockbroker, but he was best known as a chess player and a chess author. After moving to the United States, Mednis represented us at the 1955 World Junior Championship, where he finished second place behind Boris Spassky, drawing their individual game. He played on the 1962 U.S. Olympiad team, finishing in third place. That was the 1962 Olympiad. He took first place in Puerto Rico in 1984, so he still had the stuff. He became a grandmaster. I thought he did. I don't see that stat here. Didn't Mednis become a grandmaster? I thought he did, and I usually write it in here if that's the case. But I'm thinking he became a grandmaster in 1980. This was the 8th round, played on August 12th, 1957. So we have e4, no surprise from Bobby, and another Sicilian defense with c5, knight f3, and this time the old Sicilian. d3, quite an unusual variation. e6, a French variation, isn't it? g3, g6, and bishop g2. Isn't this really a transposition to King's Indian attack? It feels like it. This is a really unusual looking opening. And look at all these holes in Black's structure already. You've got elements of the Sicilian, the French, and the King's Indian attack all jumbled together. Bishop g7, castles, King's knight e7, Queen's knight d2, castles, and rook e1. Mednis with b6. That gets an inaccuracy. The bot calling for e5. The book calls for d6 is the book move here. And the ECO has knight f1 here. And the most common answer after that is rook b8. But b6 by Mednis right there. e5, obstructing the bishop, d5, and knight f1. It does get a star, but I always thought taking this pawn en passant was better. What do I get for this? Has this ever been played? I get a star for it. It has been played a few times. Not many. 3 games in the database with pawn takes pawn en passant. And then, of course, queen takes, and then you can play knight c4, hitting the queen. Let's go back. Bobby with knight f1, queen c7. And right, there are a lot of good moves here. You can go ahead and follow through with bishop b7 here, for example. But queen c7 by Mednis, and Bobby with bishop f4. I would think bishop g5 is playable, but probably not optimal. Let's see what about bishop g5 gets. Okay, it started out inaccurate, but then it changed its mind to a check mark. Bishop f4 was played. d4, queen d2. And here the eval bar is almost dead center. Rook e8. The bot's still calling for bishop b7. It is the move that you would expect after b6 was played. Bishop h6, bishop h8, which explains why he played this. He didn't want to trade those bishops off. h4, now bishop b7. And I actually thought knight f5 might be stronger and get rid of that bishop out of your hair. Let's see what I get here. I get a star for this idea. I don't like that bishop there, so I want to come get it. Well, Edmar Mednis played bishop b7, and Bobby brought his back-rank knight to h2. Ooh, that gets a question mark. Did not expect a question mark there. Knight takes the pawn, knight takes the knight, Bishop takes the bishop right here. And let me pause here because there's a nice little instructive tactic available that I'd like one of you viewers or more to weigh in on. Of course, you can just take this bishop with your king. But what tactic do we have available to us? Knight takes g6. You got something slightly better than knight takes g6, but you've got the right idea. And it's knight takes f7, a desperado, a Zwischenzug and a desperado combined. So if you take my knight, I take your bishop, and if you save your bishop, I save my knight. Or actually, I trade my knight off for the other bishop, but you get the point. So full credit over to Joe Biden 2005. This is better because it busts up the pawns. Whereas on knight takes g6, you can capture with the h-man, and your pawns are still united. So, but full credit to Joe Biden, because after all, it's the same idea, it's just different. And it gets a double exclam here from the annotator. Well, Mednis should have just gone ahead and captured. He played queen c6, and that gets a double question mark. King takes knight is the best choice, and after king takes bishop, then queen c6 check. And on f3, well, doesn't like f3, but okay, you've got a few choices you can play. Queen c7, knight f5 again. Queen c6 gets a double question mark, and knight takes the bishop on h8. And king takes knight is going to be my move, but he played bishop h3. The bot calling for knight f5 here. Let's see what it thinks about my move. I get a thumbs up. Bishop h3, f3. Now king takes the knight, and g4, containing that bishop. So that's a good move. I was looking at h5, but yeah, I guess I do like g4 better. h5 gets a question mark. Oh, terrible move by me. I was looking at it. I hadn't actually decided. But yeah, this is so much better. The bishop is just absolutely contained here. Knight d5, queen g5. I would think queen e2 works as well. Let's see what queen g5 gets. It gets a check mark with rook e5 preferred. What about queen e2? With the idea of queen e5 check. Well, queen e2 would force pawn to e5. I get a star. You'd have to play pawn to e5. Yeah, I guess then I'd have to play queen f2 here. Ah, exclam. That's more like it, Danny. Anyway, queen g5 from Fischer here. Pawn e5, and rook takes the pawn. That was not liked by the bot. Knight e3, taking the outpost. Yeah, queen d6, super attacking the rook, is probably answered by getting my last rook into the game. Star. Of course, he could then play knight e3 and break this communication. I guess that would compel a rook trade. Yes, and obviously only move from there. And white is looking pretty good here. Knight e3 was the choice from Edmar Mednis, and Bobby went ahead and played rook e1 anyway. You don't want to play rook e7 trying to get cute. I was about to say queen f4 is a big threat. The bot says go ahead and play it right here. You do not want to play rook e7. That gets the big red X. Because queen d6 is the simple refutation, forcing you to trade that rook off. You definitely don't want to play bishop g7 here. That would be even more worser, right? And black is just winning there. So you'd have to play rook takes the rook, and black is still better in this line as well. So rook e7 just not the way to go. Bobby with rook e1, queen d6 here, and rook takes the rook check. White's got a strong attack building. Rook takes the rook, queen f4. And of course, you can't let this queen come into g3 and win the game, so it was pretty much an only move. So the queens are traded, and now we'll get our king to f2, followed by the king to g3, trade that bishop, win that bishop. That's the plan. We want to come here and here, take that, then take that, and win the game. He played h5 here. Okay, he went ahead and took this knight first. Okay, my plan was king f2. Well, how does this work, Bobby? I don't understand, because once the pawn's here, my king can't come here anymore. It does get an inaccuracy. Yeah, the bot likes my idea. Right, because pawn takes pawn, and okay, I can move my knight, I guess? No, I don't understand. I'm overlooking something here. I mean, couldn't I just win that bishop for a pawn? Or am I just delusional? Oh, I see, because I know. He could just take here, and he's got all these attackers. No, because the knight is pinned. Now, I'm a little confused. Oh, no, because I was going to take here. I did say that. I did say that. I was going to take here, then I was going to move up here. Yeah. I feel like I'm picking up some material here, because that bishop gets trapped. Oh, maybe he can play e2 and protect. I don't know. It's very confusing. This is a little bit beyond my level. Anyway, Bobby played bishop takes knight, pawn takes the bishop. Bobby was the master of simplification, I remind you, so this has got to be right. Yeah, and he played g5 here. Yeah, I'm a little bit confused. This just lets the bishop out. I'm overlooking something. I wish I could figure out what it was. I don't know. Maybe he's just saying, I'm about to be up 2 pawns. You can run free with your bishop. And he did. He played bishop d7. Although you might want to get your king into the game and not be in such a hurry. His bishop had been in the dark so long that the moment he saw daylight, he played bishop d7. Not liked. The bot, though, preferring pawn c5. I thought, get this king in. Now that the door is open, you can play this in due time. And if the super attack comes against the pawn, perhaps rook f8, but I'll take with my rook and defend that. All right, I should be good here if I'm white as well. Anyway, bishop d7. It's hard for black to come up with anything here. Knight f1 super attacks the pawn, bishop c6. Don't play e2 here. Oh, actually, that's funny. The arrow says do play e2. I was going to say don't play e2. I was going to say do not play e2, but the bot said do play e2. But on pawn e2, I'm going to come knight d2. I could even play knight to g3, actually. That super attacks that pawn again. All right. Anyway, bishop c6. Rook takes the pawn. Rook takes the rook. Knight takes the rook. And bishop takes the pawn. Bobby going into an endgame, a pawn up. Knight versus bishop. King f2, bishop b7, king g3, getting the advantage over the enemy king. King g7, king f4, king f7, and look at this monster king. That was fast. No way, not with the superior position of this white king. No way is it going to be a draw. I think even I could win this endgame. With an extra pawn and a superior king in the endgame, king e7 was played here. Knight d5 check. Please, please trade. Please trade. Please, please, please trade. I'm just way faster and have the extra pawn. King f7, declining the trade. The bot says trade. That is hilarious. King d6, bishop c8, knight f4, bishop to g4. Okay, the bot calling for bishop f5. That's going to be answered by a simple a3. You just do pretty much nothing. Bishop g4 was played. King c7. White is just clearly winning now. Bishop f3. c3. b5. d4. Pawn takes the pawn. Pawn takes the pawn. b4, d5, bishop takes, and that's going to be that. Knight takes. If he could find a way to trade off the pawns, it would be a draw. King e6, knight f4 check, king f5, knight takes g6. What a move! What a move, ladles and jelly spoons. This is a tremendous move in chess. Wow. Giving himself a guaranteed passed pawn in an endgame. So yeah, this is what I meant when I said Bobby Fischer was the master of simplification. The point is that this move permanently cripples the black king. He gives up a knight for a pawn, but the black king can never leave now. He can never leave this region. The black king must stay in this region, for if he ever leaves this region, my G-man will promote. He could have resigned right there. B3 was played, king f5, king b7, king g4, and that's that. That's that. That just, as soon as you leave that region, game's over. He resigned right here. We're promoting on the next turn, no stopping it. So, what a beautiful move. To me, it's such an instructional move, guys. Because we amateurs would say, oh no, my knight. Oh no, I have to save my knight. What a brilliant move. And that move really is so typical of Bobby Fischer. He knew how to simplify to an advantage. And that's just a winning move all day long. Even if you stay in this region. He played b3. Even if you stall, I don't know, you have to stay in this region. If you ever move outside of that square, I push my pawn. And so that means white can take all day long to come after these pawns. You know, doesn't matter, because you can never come here. As soon as you get over here, you are now at the limits of your domain. If you ever come to blockade this pawn, I'm pushing the G-man. Just such a beautiful move by Bobby Fischer. Such an instructive move. Let me give you the numbers, and I'll take some viewer challenges. Bobby Fischer scoring 93.7 accuracy. Edmar Mednis 86.1. Bobby Fischer's single game rating assessment 2,700. Mednis 2,400. And Bobby just outplayed him, didn't he? He played a bit better in the opening. He was a cut above in the middle game. And his end game was just beautiful. It was just a cut above.